Welcome to episode number 12 of the Crypto Mining Tools podcast. And we'll just take this moment right now to get all of our guests to put their phones on vibrate. So today we have Devin Blitzer with us. And hey, Devin. And as well as our co-host, Ethan Zerka.
Hey, everybody. Happy 2020.
Oh, yeah.
We're all here.
2020.
It's a new year.
That's right.
And I'm Scott Offord, your host. So today is an exciting episode. Devin's going to be telling us all about electricity, power generation, and some alternative ways that miners are doing it these days. So it's going to be a very educational episode. But before we get to Devin, we're going to just talk about an upcoming conference today. Ethan, you and I are going to this, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And I'm so excited to go to it. It's the Mining Disrupt Conference in Miami, and it's happening this summer, I believe in July, towards the end of July. And Scott and I are hopefully going to be, really prominent in this event and help this event out with a lot of other aspects and bring some new ideas to this event. So I'm really excited to go. I'm really excited to put our new ideas forward and help make this event the best that it can be.
Absolutely. So if you go to 2.tools/mining-disrupt, you can see here that the prices are actually a little bit lower if you go to that link. So 2.tools/mining-disrupt. You get 10% off if you use the code OfferedScott, or if you use the link, it's going to be automatically applied. All right. So let's get to Devin.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into this whole mining thing?
Yeah, for sure. First off, I'll be at Mining Disrupt too, so definitely recommend that.
Awesome.
Definitely recommend that conference. My background is more traditional tech. I used to work at the weather company and IBM and doing cloud and AI development. And in 2017, left full time for the mining industry and did some colo. And did a lot of data center aspects of the business and industry, and ends up we have now transitioned into power generation. So not just for Bitcoin mining, but we're power generation for data centers. So the blockchain industry, traditional and cloud, and the ability to do on-site generation instead of using the grid, and using the grid as backup as well to be able to maximize your uptime. And so yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for mining, cheap power. And as this industry grows and it becomes more and more competitive, that kilowatt hour rate really becomes more and more competitive and lower.
Yeah.
So tell us about the different sites or the different types of on-site power generation that. So what you're seeing right now in the mining world with on-site power generation is using stranded gas assets. The reason being is because compared to on market, the gas is basically free, and so that's a huge competitive advantage when generating your electricity. There's different types of fuel, natural gas that you can source to be able to run your generators. There's flare gas, which is currently being flared up. I don't know if you've ever seen an oil field, but that flame, they're just burning up the natural gas into the sky. So that's gas that you can capture and treat and be able to generate electricity with on site. And then at the oil field, you would have the data center at the oil field. So instead of paying transmission fees and distribution fees like you have with the grid, you don't pay those. You immediately step down to your data center, and you as well get free fuel. So that's why you're able to generate really low kilowatt hour rates. There's the flare gas, which is wells that are currently being drilled. There's a stranded gas where the cost to bring to these are wells that have been drilled that the wells aren't producing. But the gas is still just trapped there.
The gas is trapped there. Exactly. It can produce megawatts and megawatts and megawatts of power. And so there's that. And then there's also areas where you actually, it's gas that is in the pipeline, but it's so cheap that these oil companies are willing to secure really cheap rates for the gas. Well, you will pay something, but you're getting pipeline quality gas. You're able to be at one site for 10 years, and so the ability to have multiple sources of cheap gas, whether it's stranded, flared, or in the pipeline and cheap. For instance, in the Permian, people were paying to move that gas, right? So you can either come in and take that gas potentially for free, or if you want to sign a 5 or 10-year contract, you're going to have to pay something for that gas. But you're able to be very competitive. You have a huge competitive advantage when negotiating those types of contracts.
Now, can you give me an idea of how long, like what would be the kind of cutoff point for these gas reservoirs in terms of like how long they can produce? Like where would be kind of your ideal break-even point? Do you want something that lasts longer than 5 years, or do you want something that lasts longer than 20 years or 50 years?
Yeah. So if you can be at one location for 10, 15 years, that's of course ideal, right? But what you're seeing and what really becomes competitive is the ability to have mobile turbine units that can be transported on 18-wheelers. They just look like huge shipping containers, but they generate 5 megawatts or 2 megawatts or 35 megawatts. So there's mobile units that you're able to deploy depending on the well and the location, whether or not it's a shale play, whether it's in the Permian or the Bakken, which is in North Dakota, and the Permian's in Texas, which is rich gas, right? And what you have is every year you're having to, that decline rate of the gas becomes exponentially lower and lower to where you have to drill new wells. So what you're seeing is that these oil companies every year are having to drill new wells, and so it just depends on the site location where you are, whether you're in Texas or North Dakota, or if you're in Canada or Pennsylvania. If you're talking about gas wells, those gas wells are going to last a lot longer as well. And essentially, one of the benefits of dealing with gas wells is that you can choke back the flow rate of the gas to get a consistent supply for a longer period of time. Whereas you're piggybacking on an oil company's well, they're drilling for oil, their byproduct is the gas, and they're not going to choke back their wells for your benefit, right? So you don't have to move. Now,
yeah, I was just wondering, you said rich gas. Is that a type of gas or what?
Yeah, so there's rich gas.
Is there like a poor gas and a rich gas and a middle gas?
Stinky gas?
There's rich gas and there's lean gas.
Okay, lean gas.
So you have your gas when you're drilling an oil well, they're drilling for the oil, and the gas is kind of a gnat to them. It's an issue, but if they can market it, they can make money off of it, but they're having so much issues without pipeline capacity. The difference, though, between the rich gas and the lean gas is that, for instance, in your gas composition, you'll have methane, ethane, propane, butane, hexane, pentane, right? Carbon.
That's a lot of gas, yeah.
That's a lot of tangs.
Well, yeah. Well, they're all used for different things. Your turbine wants to have as pure of methane as possible. Right.
Okay.
So
that's the gas that smells really bad, if I understand correctly, right? So like an organic.
Well, it actually is odorless, but they make it smell bad, so you know that that there's an issue going on.
All right.
But yeah, so rich gas has propane and butane in there, which actually derates the performance of your turbine. So if you have pipeline quality gas, which is 100% methane, you're gonna get the highest performance out of that turbine. With this rich gas, there's smaller turbines that can take this rich gas. But if you're talking about a 35 megawatt turbine by GE, it can't take 55% methane, 22% ethane, 12% propane. It has to take 93% methane, right?
As pure as possible.
Yes, but the cost to be able to treat the gas you have to, based on how much you're scaling, whether or not you're doing a 35 megawatt deployment or a 5 megawatt deployment. It might not make any sense to treat that 5 megawatt gas of rich gas. So you would have a turbine that can consume that 55% methane. It will be derated, but essentially what you have is just a variety of different compositions of gas making up those anes that we were talking about. And based on site locations that you source, based on the gas composition that you receive from the oil company, you would then model out which turbine or gas engine
is the best fit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you're talking about turbines, gas engines, generators.
Yeah.
So I don't. That's not necessarily my expertise. What's the difference, and how do you deploy these things?
Yeah. And like, how are they expensive? Are they like crazy? Are they like jet engines? Like, what are they?
Yeah. So so for some of the some of them are very similar to air derivative jet engines. They are essentially jet engines. Some of the turbines. Then you have your heavier turbines. The cost for the turbine. I mean, if you're talking about a few megawatt, or a few megawatt deal, you're talking about $1 million a megawatt. But then if you scale up, you can get down to 600,000, 700,000, and this is including install and everything like that. Now those are for gas turbines. Gas engines are cheaper, right? You can get them for 300, 400,000 used, or 600, 700,000 new.
Okay. Per megawatt?
Per megawatt, yes. Okay. The difference between a gas engine and a gas turbine is that the gas engine is they're both considered gas. They're both considered gas engines. You call them gas engines, but there's the reciprocating engine,
like the pistons.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
And then the other is like the turbines in a jet.
It's one moving part. So even though the CapEx is cheaper on the reciprocating engines, the operations and maintenance of that reciprocating engine is a lot higher. So if you are able to get turbines financed, most of the time you're gonna get a lot better performance. You're gonna get 98 to 99% uptime on that turbine, where with your reciprocating engines you have more than 5% downtime to be able to fix that up. And you have to have you have a few of those where you have to have more people on site, and so that OpEx cost really increases.
Okay. So when these engines burn this gas, I'm assuming that the emissions coming out are much better for the environment than just letting the flame burn at the top of the drill tower.
Yeah. So what you have with these turbines, these smaller turbines, up until you have your 1, your 5, your 10, 15 megawatt turbines. A lot of them are DLE, which is dry low emissions. Then you have the GE TM2500. It's a mobile turbine. If you just Google TM2500, you'll see it, get a real good visual of what it is. And so essentially, I mean, if you were to deploy that right in North Dakota, you wouldn't be able to take that gas, so you would have to treat it, right? And so they're currently burning it up into the sky, that 55% methane, that 22% ethane, that 12% propane, that 6% butane. And so you would be able, it's very expensive, but you bring out a $7 or $8 million treatment skid, and you would separate that propane, all the propanes and the ethanes and everything like that, so your turbine can take that methane. Even though that specific TM2500 has horrible emissions compared to your smaller turbines, and there's a lot of issues where you actually need you need an upgrade to your exhaust to be able to handle the oxidation, right? because there's a lot of emissions with that specific turbine. But since you're removing all that propane, that butane, and everything like that, it becomes a lot easier to become EPA approved, right? Because you're instead of burning it all into the sky, you're utilizing that methane, but you're also taking that propane and that butane, and you're marketing. You can sell those NGLs, or you can take that propane and generate more electricity with it. Just run on 100% propane, and do more mining. So
I'd like to talk shortly here about doing this in warm environments versus cold. But first, why don't we talk about our sponsor a little bit here, Ethan?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out and a big thank you to our sponsor, NovaBlock. NovaBlock is just very young. It came here in the United States roughly 5 months ago. And in that short time, they've managed to become one of the 5th largest pools in the world. And they're helping, shift away the mining that's going on in China and help to bring it here into North America. And they want to become a leader. And they believe in giving their customers, transparency and helping them make informed decisions as to which pool is the right fit for them. And I've gotten some feedback from some people using NovaPool, and everybody says it's really great. They've compared it with other pools, and they've really found that it does make a difference for their mining operations. So give it a try. It's awesome.
Yeah. So if you want to give it a try, on their website in the top right-hand corner, there's a sign up button, and you just need to sign up. There's an invitation code you can use. Type in offered18, and that will get you a reduced mining pool fee down to 1.8%. So also it's worth to say that if you have a lot of hash power and you're looking to make a change, you can go there. You can probably even get a little bit lower than 1.8%. But anyway, sign up at novablock.com, offered18, and try out NovaBlock. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, sure.
All right. So back to you, Devin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how these things work in the cold environments and versus hot?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these turbines, depending if you're talking, there's a difference between your reciprocating and your turbines. With your turbine performs significantly better in colder environments than hot environments. So for instance, your 5 megawatt, if you have a Solar Taurus 60, which is a very, very popular 5 megawatt turbine, if you deploy that and it's rated for 5 megawatts, and then it hits 100 degrees, 90 to 100 degrees in Texas, it could be derated to 4 megawatts. So being in the colder environments is great. Now in regards to being able to, you always want to have the colder environment, but there's ways to be able to intake cold air to the turbine so that it actually performs as if it was receiving below 50 degree Fahrenheit ambient air versus 90 to 100 degrees. So what that's called is inlet air chilling. And with essentially what you can do is you can do cogeneration. So you take that exhaust of the gas, and you have a boiler that creates, with that waste heat, you create steam that then powers a steam turbine that creates more electricity, 30 to 40% more electricity on top of your 5 megawatts, right? And with some of that electricity, you power an absorption chiller that chills the 90-degree temperature to 50 or 45 degrees, depending on what your turbine can take without icing. It gets too cold and it ices. But the ability to have what's called a HRSG, heat recovery steam generation, will allow you to be able to operate at optimal kilowatt, optimal performance rating, which then brings down your kilowatt hour rate in hot environments, right? Now with your reciprocating engines, depending on the reciprocating engine, their also elevation's a huge is one of the variable factors for the turbines. It's not as much for the reciprocating engines, and also a lot of these engines, you won't see anything past, you won't see any derating up until 80 Fahrenheit, where that's not the case with the turbines. But then there's also gas engines that can run 110, 120 degrees. So you could deploy these in the Middle East, and the gas engines, you won't really have much of a derating. So it all comes down to at the end of the day, knowing what your gas is, but not only your gas, but what that specific site location is. And based off that, there's multiple scenarios to run to be able to make sure that you're deploying the lowest cost, most efficient gas engine.
Okay. So yeah, talking about efficiency like that, I mean, how can you really maximize your generator output?
Yeah, through that HRSG unit, the heat recovery. So what you can do is, for instance, you have a 5 megawatt turbine. You take that heat recovery, you create steam with the boiler, generate more electricity, and so you go from 5 megawatts to 7 megawatts. But then with some of that power, you're then able to air chill the inlet temperature and get that base 5 megawatts of the turbine to 5.5 megawatts, 6 megawatts. So you end up getting 8 megawatts. Not only that, but let's say you buy your gas for a cent a kilowatt hour, right? And then you add this HRSG, this heat recovery steam generation. Well, what you're doing is you're seeing at 30, let's just say a 33% increase or half, you're seeing 33% increase from 5 megawatts to 7.5 megawatts. So that actually reduces your 1 cent a kilowatt hour cost down
to like 70 cents. Yeah, like 0.7 cents. So.
Yes, so that is how you optimize your kilowatt hour rate.
Okay, and one question technically about the actual voltage that's delivered. How do you actually hook them up to the miners, or the containers, whatever you're doing? What voltage is it getting delivered at?
Yeah, so it just depends on the gas engine. It can be anywhere from 480 to 13.8, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah. So you're talking about 1 to 2 up. When you're talking more so about 5+ megawatts, you're getting into 13.8. But that allows you to be able to you can step it down to your 240 from there.
So are there any challenges to stepping that down, or?
So what you're seeing is very popularly asked by miners is 415, 240, and you would just size a 13.8 kV input right to that transformer that would then have your whatever size your turbine is, 5 megawatts, 35 megawatts. You would size that transformer, and then you would step it down to whatever your data center requirements are per data center. Now, and that would come in at 240.
How many amps are these generators capable of making?
Oh, that's a very good question. It really just depends. It depends on a bunch of factors. But when you're talking about 5 megawatts at 480, you can run the math.
We can do the math. Yeah.
So I have a question about.
I'll get back to you on that. On specific amps for turbines, and I don't have any numbers off the top of my head. I apologize.
Sure.
No worries. Good answer. So yes, some people are claiming that mining or doing this data center stuff using gas is a lot cheaper than using the grid. I mean, what's your opinion?
Yeah. Like we had talked about I had previously just quickly mentioned that compared to the grid, right? What you're seeing on the grid is that a power plant buys the gas on market. They do their on-site power generation, and they step up their transformers to the grid, hits those transmission lines, takes it however far it is to the end user. You have your distribution, and then you step it down, and then that's how miners get their power from the grid. Well, that transmission and distribution can take up can cost up to 40% of the kilowatt hour rate, right? Mm-hmm. So by being able to save on that cost and the ability to get the gas for basically free compared to $2, $2.50 an MCF, $2.50 every 1,000 cubic feet. That when you calculate that to kilowatt hour rates, it varies, but it's essentially 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour, just 2 cents to 2.5 cents just for the gas, right? So when you take that into consideration, you take in your capex for the power generation and that transmission and distribution fees. That's why being able to do the on-site power generation with the stranded gas is so incentivizing and so cheap, and that's where you're seeing a big movement towards.
Okay, so you have to you're talking about it in terms of MCF, and then you have to translate that over to kilowatt hour rate.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, and MCF is the measurement, just like barrels of oil. They measure gas in NCF.
Okay.
Yeah, and so every turbine, every gas engine has a different efficiency, right? But you would just take the heat rate of the gas and calculate how many MCF it takes to generate that 1 kilowatt hour, and based off that and your price, you can easily calculate what your kilowatt hour is.
Can you give us like a ballpark, like on average, these gas engines need this much gas to generate a kilowatt hour?
Yeah. So it can vary anywhere from 9,000 to 13,000 heat rate, which is let's just say you have a 10,000 you have a 10,000 heat rate, which means 10,000 BTU per kilowatt hour. An MCF of gas is 1,000. It can be about a little over 1,000 BTU.
Okay.
And 1,000 BTU, right? A cubic feet of gas. So what you do is you take that 10,000 heat rate, you divide it by the BTU of the gas, which is 1,000. Then you get 10 cubic feet, right, per kilowatt hour. Then that 10 cubic feet, you then calculate based off your MCF price. You divide 1,000 divided by that 10. You get 100 cubic feet, right? You get 100 cubic feet that then you're able. Sorry, I'm kind of getting lost track on there, but essentially,
a lot of math.
Yeah, it's a lot of math, but it's essentially you calculate how many cubic feet it takes to generate that kilowatt hour, and based on your MCF price, which is like say it's 10 MCF. Say it's 10 cubic feet per kilowatt hour, and your price is on market is $2 an MCF, right? So you take that price, that $2 an MCF, and you divide it by I think 100 or 1,000, and it ends up being 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Now that's a perfect example, right? So if you're getting 8 cubic feet of gas per kilowatt hour, or 12 cubic feet of gas per kilowatt hour, that 2 cents will vary up or down.
Okay.
Based on the heat rate. If it uses less than 10,000 heat rate, it uses 9,000 or 6,000 when you're talking about heat recovery steam generation, then that will affect your kilowatt hour rate. And it's honestly not too difficult to calculate. There's a few steps, but it's always easier when you're running it on spreadsheets.
Yeah. Sure. Of course. Now, I'm just imagining here that the reciprocating engines are less efficient at converting the gas into electricity than the turbines. Is that true?
It just depends.
Okay.
It just depends, really. I mean, you have a lot of gas engine manufacturers out there, and based off how it takes in the gas, you have to run a performance analysis. There's a lot of moving variables that, based on your gas composition, it'll derate the turbine in a certain way, right? And so you can have a rated efficiency, but you're talking about a specific site, it's going to be totally different based on your gas composition. and it varies between gas engines and turbines.
Yeah. So there are a lot of options.
Yeah.
So yeah, Devin, I want to ask you how people can get a hold of you, so you can let our audience know. But first, Ethan, why don't you and I talk a little bit about that new cool thing that we just launched?
Sure, absolutely. So we have launched crypto mining tools as a marketplace. You guys may have all be familiar with our previous apps. That was a calculator and a comparison app. And we've decided to take it a step further and make it a full-fledged marketplace. You can go on there and you can list your miners for sale. And, as people go, they now have a single, unified, clear and easy to see interface. And go ahead and scroll down again, Scott, and show so here is a great example. We have the same miner, but by two different sellers listed for sale. So you can go through this marketplace. You can find the miners that you want at the price that you want. And you can even filter by location. So you can find the miners that are closest to you at the price that you want. If you want to sell, you can go and you can list your miners on there for sale. And it's in a trusted environment that's developed by Scott and myself to make sure that all of the crummy things that have happened in the past through chat rooms and things like that with people getting ripped off and scammed don't happen.
Absolutely. Well, I couldn't say it any better. So thanks for saying that, Ethan. And so back to Devin.
Yeah. Well. First off, what you just showed, your website's amazing. I mean, the miners that we're deploying power generation for are looking to source equipment, and I already send them your way.
Awesome.
And having this whole e-commerce platform just is a game changer. I mean,
I think so too.
Yeah. Very
well,
cool.
Thank you. Devin, how do people get a hold of you if they have questions about running off of natural gas and taking advantage of this flare gas situation?
So my company is BYO Energy.
Okay.
BYO-energy.com is the link. And really, I'm on Telegram. Shoot me a text at 832-483-2725. And
he went there.
That's my number. But
right.
But yeah, I mean, if you have any questions about that, definitely let me know. Our business, we're having our own gas secured, but miners that have their gas secured, we can actually deploy power generation solutions at their site, finance the turbines, and just turnkey to kilowatt hour rate with the PPA.
Awesome.
So,
well, I think there's going to be a lot of people Googling you now, and they'll be looking for Devin Blitzer. So
it's because you're so popular and they're listening.
Oh yeah.
If I ever have really bad gas and I don't know what to do with it, I'm calling you first, Devin.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see oil companies are going to start doing this on their own. They're going to become miners, and so yeah, they have some shitty gas. That's for sure. Excuse my language.
Yeah, just on the way out here, Rain, I think that's how you say it. Rain Cotton says, "Good discussion, and can you speak to the O&M and interval overhaul cost on a per kilowatt basis for gensets?"
Yeah.
I don't even understand what that sentence means. What is it?
Yeah. So it just depends if it's a reciprocating engine or if it's a gas turbine. For instance, on a 5 megawatt gas turbine like a solar, to overhaul it, we'll just call $1 million, right? Just to overhaul it, and that rate is about half a cent a That's about a half a cent a kilowatt hour maybe a little less to overhaul that turbine. And it just depends on if you want to do, if you do a service agreement with the OEM or a non-OEM, they're going to be the ones servicing the turbine for you. So you can either decide to include the overhaul cost in that LTSA, which they'll service for you, or you can just do a service agreement without the overhaul. But essentially, you're looking at less than a cent, anywhere from half a cent to a cent for a service agreement, where the OEM would replace the overhaul and it would be included. In terms of reciprocating engines, you're looking at 50 to 60% of the turbine, the gas reciprocating engine cost to overhaul it, and you're looking at about, it just depends on the engine, but twice the cost for servicing the turbine. Right.
So lower capex, but
engine,
higher
not
OpEx.
Not the turbine. Sorry, the gas engine. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah.
Well, great. Thanks for that last minute question there. And Devin, thanks for coming on our show.
Thanks a lot, Devin.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right. So thanks again to our sponsor, NovaBlock. They have a mining pool at novablock.com. And if you go to their website, go to the right-hand corner, there is a sign up button. Click the sign up button and you can enter the invitation code offered 18 and you can get a reduction in your pool fees down to 1.8%.